Hello and welcome to All Villa No Filler podcast, all about Aston Villa, the world's greatest football team. Remember to subscribe to the show, follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Well, Aston Villa didn't take their chances, and boy, did they pay the price against Arsenal on Saturday. We'll get to that in a minute. And later in the show, of course, Frankie cooks up another one of his oh so spicy questions. But first things first, Frankie, how are you doing?
Yeah, a little bit disappointed because I live in a very Arsenal area, and
Yeah.
I went and bought a new suit which I embroidered with Aston Villa stuff on it. Paid or blew all my life savings on it. I rented out a load of fireworks down the street. I was going to set off ticker tape that I was going to throw out. Bought all the Villa merchandise I was going to wear around, walking around like John Travolta. After we beat Arsenal for a third time in a row, and then annoyingly. Ollie Watkins didn't take his chances. And so,
Yeah.
my great big celebration party, which was no doubt going to get me probably beaten to a bloody pulp, but would have been worth it, never came to be, sadly. So, yeah, it was a bit of a shame. But yeah, other than that, not a lot going on. How about you, George? All good?
Yeah, no, all good. You know what what I've been enjoying, Frankie. I've been really enjoying the player pronunciation videos
Oh,
that I've
yes.
seen. They just, I don't know why they make me laugh. They just make me laugh. Just how awkward all the players look when they're given that little sheet of paper with their name on. Um, I particularly like John Duran when he
Yeah.
was like John Duran, John
Yeah.
John Duran.
Yeah.
That was good. Also, Unai Emery not saying his full name,
I
just
know.
going, "I am Unai."
Have we been getting it wrong all this time? His name's actually I am. I am Unai.
I am an Iam's cat.
It's just like no
Yeah.
one, no one ever thought. He never thought to just correct anybody and say, like, I don't know why you keep calling me Emery. I
Emery's,
don't know.
yeah,
Where's
it's
it?
such a weird, like, I don't know.
I am Unai. Finally, I can tell
I
everyone my
am,
name's I am Unai.
I am Unai. I am Unai.
It
Emery
reminds
is
me
not part of it.
reminds me of Parks and Rec, where the character Jerry Gergich, his real name's Gary, but no, he just doesn't bother to correct anybody, so they just call him Jerry the whole time.
Well,
Uh,
my name's, I think, probably quite interesting and unique, maybe to a lot of our listeners. So maybe I need a sheet of paper and just George Zielinski,
oh,
George
oh,
Zielinski.
that's how you say your name.
I
Bloody hell.
am George. I am George.
I've been calling you Zielinski all these years. Jesus, should have told me.
Well, listen, now
Um,
you know. Now you know. Now our many viewers, subscribers, please subscribe. Listeners, watchers will now know Zielinski. Zielinski.
how embarrassing would it be for me if Harry Maguire said my surname differently? I'm like, oh, that's how you say my surname.
Oh no.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Miguire. Miguire.
Maguire.
I've never heard of that. Wow. Yeah.
Majua.
Yeah.
Majua. But
Maguire.
anyway, I digress. As you say, Frankie, it was a very disappointing result. Not performance, I would say, in hindsight. Obviously, we're now talking about 24 hours after the event, more so. And I've watched it back and I thought, one of those games where, as you say, if Ollie takes his chances, it's a completely different game. But yeah, what's your general thoughts now we've passed
Well,
another day?
I don't want to get into the habit of being like happy with a loss, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
I don't think this Aston Villa team should ever be happy with losses. I don't think we should ever be looking at games and going like, we played really well, we lost, but I think I want this Villa team to always have the mentality of, and I think we as a fan base should have the mentality of we should win things, we should aim to win things, and we don't ever
Absolutely.
want to lose. But I think, Aston Villa are on a long-term journey, I think, under Unai Emery. And we're currently at a point in time where you have to say Arsenal are more likely to compete for the Premier League title than we are. But that's not to say that we couldn't have beaten them. And I think yesterday, if we'd taken even just one of those chances that Ollie Watkins had, I think there's a very strong chance we would have beaten them for the third time in a row. Let's face it, Arsenal this year, I think since the start of this year, have they lost a game in the league other than Villa at the Emirates?
Mm.
And Villa could have repeated the trick yesterday. Unai Emery clearly has an idea of how to play Arsenal. He gets it because he's a brilliant football manager. And yesterday, Gary Neville said he said in the second half, I'm quite frustrated by Arsenal at this moment in time. I don't like what I'm seeing. But what was frustrating was you're saying you're annoyed by Arsenal, but The reason Arsenal are playing so clunkily is because Aston Villa have made them look like this. This isn't because Arsenal are a bad team. I've tipped them to win the Premier League. I think they're a good chance for the Champions League as well, just because I think they have such incredible defensive solidity. I think they
Mm.
maybe lack something in attack, maybe one extra ingredient. But aside from that, this is a super, super top team. And Aston Villa showed we can beat a top team like that, a team who can potentially win things this season. And Aston Villa have shown that they're a team who themselves can go on and potentially win something this season. I thought that Unai Emery had a brilliant tactical master plan yesterday. And the only thing, he worked out how to keep. I described it on the match preview the other day. Arsenal down the right, I call it Odegaard Island. Ben White, Saka, and Odegaard, they all do these interchanges. Odegaard works that bit of space and finds that island. And that's what happened when he got that pass to Saka. It's exactly as I described it because I've watched, we've all seen it a million times, is what they do. But up until that point, Villa had done an extremely good job in keeping them quiet. In John McGinn and Tielemans, Luca Dean, I thought
Oh
they were
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
I thought the whole team, the way they were structured, was really good. But it just felt that the only thing that went wrong was that whereas we took our chances in the two games last season and Arsenal didn't take theirs, yesterday we didn't take two pretty simple chances for a player of Ollie Watkins' level, whereas Arsenal took their chances, and that's the difference. And all I can say is I'll come out of it feeling positive in the sense I think Aston Villa look like a brilliant football team. They are two great sides yesterday, and we are in a very exciting moment with Aston Villa to think that's how good we are. Think how much better we can still get.
yeah. No, I completely agree. I think obviously it's very, very early in the season, 2 games in, but you just get a sense from both games now, West Ham and now Arsenal, that despite the result, there's nothing that makes me think that there's going to be some sort of drop off where we're going to finish, down eighth, ninth, mid-table, whatever. Which some people have suggested that we might do. I know we haven't got involved in Europe yet. Uh, Obviously, there already injuries are starting to sort of
Yeah.
influence who we're playing with Matty Cash coming off injured very early and Kosta Nedeljkovic thrown in. So things may change in that regard, but there's a week of the transfer window still left, and I do think we will probably dive into the transfer market again before that slams shut. Although things do feel a little bit quiet at the moment, I'm sure there'll be some more ins and outs before Friday's deadline. So, yeah, in terms of the game, yeah, I think nothing that hasn't been said before by a lot of Villa fans on social media and other podcasts as well. That I think it is a different game if we do take those chances. And Watkins, of course, is coming back into fitness and form. He didn't have a pre-season. I think it is really important to mention that.
Yeah.
Yes, there might be some people that say, regardless of pre-season or lack thereof, he should be scoring those chances anyway. But it's not for me. It's not so much about the finishing per se. It's about kind of getting into those positions,
Mm.
and the fact that he got into those positions shows that he is finding his feet again. He was anonymous against West Ham. I think that's fair to
He
say.
was,
And
yeah.
obviously, when he came off, Duran was the difference maker in that game. I think what we saw against Arsenal was him, finding those positions that he found so regularly last season. The issue was just, making sure that he was just, that bit sharper in front of goal.
Mm.
And as you say, it's against an Arsenal team who don't concede chances. So you've got when they present themselves to you as they did to Ollie Watkins, you've got to take them because
Yeah.
they come at a premium. And as soon as I think I messaged my dad afterwards as soon as David Raya made that save. I said, I think we've lost this. I just think like I'm not sure we're going to get a better chance than that now. We've had one in the first half, one in the second now, and I just think Arsenal are gonna make us pay, and they did. That's what they did. And
Mm.
I know you said as well that Arsenal don't have that sort of clinical striker, but they still score an awful lot of goals
Oh
from
yeah, yeah.
everywhere.
And
Martinelli,
Havertz is
Saka,
quality. Yeah.
yeah, Havertz.
Yeah.
I think Havertz will grow into his position this season. I mean, he had a really strong end to that last
Yeah, he did.
season.
Yeah.
Scored against Wolves first game of the season for them. And yeah, I think he'll be a key player for them this season. And as you say, defensively, all the best teams that tend to win championships and trophies do it with having the best defense.
Mm.
And in Calafiori and Timber coming back, it feels like a new player for them. I promise this is a Villa podcast, by the way. That they will be very defensively sound again this season.
Yeah,
My FPL tip for anyone is to just pack it full of Arsenal defenders because they'll get you tons of points.
yeah,
But yeah, from a Villa perspective, I'm not throwing my toys out the pram at all. As you say, Unai is I am Unai is an incredible, he's an incredible coach, and he can't do anything more as a coach than set his team out to create the chances for Ollie Watkins to take. It's just Ollie Watkins just didn't have his shooting boots on
yeah,
yesterday, and it just wasn't to be. But yeah, performance wise, gives me a lot of encouragement, and we've got a really good run of games now. Now Arsenal's
yeah.
out of the way. We've got Leicester coming up. I think we've got Wolves coming up. We've got Everton coming up. Eminently winnable games. And so I think, Watkins will be given a ton more chances in those games, and I'm sure he'll find his rhythm very, very soon.
And yeah, and I think something we've got to talk about Morgan Rogers. You
Oh my
know,
God.
I mean,
Yeah, unbelievable.
I think what I said before the season was that I thought this season, if I was going to say one to watch, I'd look at Nedeljkovic because of his sort of youth and what he
Mm.
might do going forward.
Because he's an unknown. Yeah, Nedeljkovic is an
Uh,
completely unknown entity, isn't he?
Yeah,
So from that
and
perspective, yeah.
and I think Ramsey as well coming back, can he reach the levels he did before and get even better? But I think if I was to say, like, who is the one to watch who I think in the sense will we as Villa fans know how good he is, but the rest of the Premier League probably has no real awareness.
Yeah.
I thought that Morgan Rogers was it because I think he's going to be in the England team. I mean, Lee Carsley,
Yeah.
he was there yesterday. He might as well buy a hospitality seat at Aston Villa this season because he just might as well sit in there and watch all of our. He might as well watch Morgan Rogers every single bloody week because he'd
Yeah.
be in for a treat. Because like I remember before, I've heard before players who've played like world class players describe some of those world class players as having quite weird techniques. They
Yeah.
kind of move in a way that's quite hard to read.
Yeah.
And Morgan Rogers, I think, has a weird technique, and I don't mean that as in like I think the better term is probably unique.
Yeah.
In
Just
that, like
unique.
when he
Yeah.
gets the ball, he's not like he's running at full pelt. He's not charging forward. But yesterday, Thomas Partey and Declan Rice bounced off the guy
Yeah.
multiple times as he's just gliding. Gliding is the word. Gliding past them and timing it perfectly to get around them. And now against West Ham and against Arsenal, there's been occasions where he's just run at a team and they can't stop him, the midfield and the defense. And I just can't help but think that when he gets one goal this season, suddenly it's all just going to go goal, goal, goal every bloody week.
Yeah.
Um, he genuinely to me, I know, like as Villa fans, we're going to like love our own, we're going to like talk him up, but he looks to me genuinely like a player who is a world class player in the making. Like I honestly, like since I saw him play against Wolves for the first time live back in March, and what I watched in from the Trinity Road, I was like, bloody hell, this guy's got raw ingredients. Wow, this guy's got something. There's one or two moments he wayward passes or makes the wrong decision. Just needs to get them out of the game basically. And once he does, and the fact is he'll get them out of his game quickly because
Mm.
he's improved so rapidly since that podcast was saying that Villa had their pants pulled down by Middlesbrough. Well, I mean, bloody hell, I hope Middlesbrough do that all the time. I hope they're pulling at Villa, giving us wedgies and nuggies and sticking their head down toilet all the time. Because I mean, if this is what happens, great. Because I honestly like it's very rare. I feel like I'm seeing something at Villa where I think this player is different. And I
Yeah.
think I felt that with Jack Grealish very early on. I think I feel it with Morgan Rogers, and
Yeah.
it's early days to say that he's not been here that long. Maybe his form drops off, and I'm like, well, didn't I look like an idiot? But I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's a brilliant football player.
Well, I mean, he's in the right place, isn't he? He's under the tutelage of one of the best coaches in Europe, who has complete faith in him. And there's a lot of things going in his favor, isn't it? I mean, not he comes from a championship team for not much money, so he's already floating under the radar. So there's no pressure on him at all. Um, So he comes in. There's no pressure on him, and he's thrown in. He's got all the physical. He comes from an acclaimed academy at Man City, he's got pedigree there, obviously, where the competition is so high. So you have
Yes.
to be a quality player
It's
to
a really
to
good
to, to
academy.
be at the
Yeah.
Man City academy. You go to Middlesbrough. You play in a very, very competitive league for a big club in that league in Middlesbrough. So you start to build up a bit of sort of match form and fitness, and then you come to Villa. One of the best coaches in the league is there. You're flying under the radar. You're basically told just kind of do your thing. He's got the physical attributes in terms of his physicality. He's big, he's strong, he's quick, he's got pace, he's got stamina. Um, and he's just built up that confidence and just playing in, week out for a big club in the Premier League now. He's basically just strutting around, full of confidence. And you could just tell he loves his football. He loves being at Villa. He loves being given sort of that the mantle of that sort of like second striker role that he sort of plays at the moment. Um, and yeah, he just plays like he enjoys football. You know how you
Yeah.
talk about like world class players like Gascoigne. Like he always played like he was a kid on a football pitch, like as in like a pitch close to his house, or do you know what I mean? Not like in a massive stadium or in a huge game. He never looked overawed. And I feel the same about Rodgers. I think you could put him in any setting. Champions League games coming up. I think he could really thrive in the Champions League because I think he just plays it for the. He plays football with just this sort of like enjoyable, free-spirited nature that
Yeah.
you don't normally associate with like Premier League players.
Like
Um,
me and you, enjoyable and free spirited.
yeah, that's exactly on this podcast. Yeah, in this podcast, we're free-spirited. We have a laugh.
We do
That's
what
why
we
people
want.
tune in. That's why we have all these subscribers because yeah, they love it. They love our free-spirited nature and
Yeah.
attitude.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I mean a brilliant game against Arsenal. And I expect to see more of the same and it was great that Lee Carsley was watching on.
Hmm.
Despite being a former Blue Nose, I think he's going to be very appreciative of watching play.
Sheldon's own Lee Carsley. I
Yeah, that's
feel
true.
because my mum grew up basically on the Sheldon Solihull border,
Hmm.
and Irish family as well. Lee Carsley played for Ireland as well. So I don't know. I feel like I kind of feel a bit like, oh, I really want him to do well.
Yeah, I know,
He's
I
sort
know.
of. I know he's blues, like for God's sake, Lee. But
Yeah,
he made a terrible decision as a child. But you got to forgive people for making
you
decisions
you do,
and support the wrong team. It happens. Jude Bellingham, he got everything right in his life apart from the one really important decision he had to make when he was about 5 years old. And
yeah.
imagine if he'd been a Villa fan. God, I dare not think of that. But
I know. Anyway, but no. I mean, obviously, Kazi will know Rodgers because he's an under 21s manager. He'll know a lot of the younger sort of England players coming through the ranks, so he'll know a lot about Rodgers anyway. But that does bode well for his potential international future. So yeah, no, great. And I say McGinn put in a good shift yesterday. I thought Tielemans for us was man of the match. I thought he was
he was
absolutely
excellent.
everywhere.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. The kind of the in crowded spaces as well. He seems
Yeah,
to have
yeah, I
this
was going to say
incredible
that.
ability to sort of
Yeah.
get the ball out, make the right decision,
It's
make the right
such
passes
an
into
amazing skill. It's such
yeah,
an amazing skill to be able to do that. It
yeah.
really is.
Very, very good. Very good. So yeah, I'm not disappointed,
So,
frankly.
what I want to ask you about Kostas Nedeljkovic, I
Mm,
think it's worth giving him a shout out because, and it's very interesting that Unai Emery didn't bring Diego Carlos on. Now, Carlos obviously got the red card in pre-season, so he hasn't really been seen since. Didn't feature again in pre-season, so you got to
yeah.
think you probably got in a bit of trouble for that, I'd
Mm,
imagine.
mm,
Um, but I wonder if there's maybe the idea is they might be able to sell him this week.
yeah.
He has
Yeah.
been linked with Fulham,
Yeah.
before, although they've just signed a couple of players. But it's interesting that he didn't bring in Carlos because that's what he did last season, and then he put Edric Konsa out to the right. And what he said in his post-match interview was that he sees Konsa as a centre back, and Konsa is a
Yeah.
centre back. I always
Yeah.
feel like whilst he can do that right wing job fine, I just feel it's a shame we're not seeing him in his best position.
Mm,
Whereas so it was interesting he had the confidence in Nedeljkovic to go on there and do a job instead of throwing on Diego Carlos. And I think that's a massive vote of confidence in Nedeljkovic. And like like we've been saying on this podcast for a while now, everything I've watched of him, I'm really excited by the raw ingredients he has. Clearly, Unai Emery must have some level of faith in him as well, that he thought, I need to give this guy experience of time. And for that, at the age he is, at 18,
Yeah.
to be coming on against Arsenal, that so few teenagers play ever in the Premier League at that kind of a level. And he's done it, and I thought yesterday he did a really good job on Martinelli. I think there
Mm-hmm.
were one or two moments when he first came on where he looked a bit nervous, like against West Ham, but he grew into it, and he really grew
Mm-hmm.
into it. I think Trossard was a bit of a lesson for him on one or two occasions, but overall, I think it was a really impressive display from a young guy who has making his home debut in a whole new culture, whole new country.
Yeah.
And as I say, I think Unai Emery must really have a lot of faith in him. I think that's a fantastic, and everything he said off the pitch as well. He sounds like he has a brilliant attitude. He wants to
Mm-hmm.
learn. So I think we should all, be really kind of as a fan base, we're very proud of what Nedeljkovic did, and quite excited to see how he develops under Unai Emery.
Yeah.
I think that area of the pitch needs a little bit more strength. I just do. But it's interesting what it might mean tactically. Why he didn't bring on another centre back. I'm interested to go down and watch Villa live this season and see whether our build-up play has shifted from last season, because Villa do have to shift, because let's face it, you constantly have to evolve because other teams get used to how you play, they start to know what you're doing, and teams just have to make adjustments all the time. Man City always adjust, Arsenal have made adjustments, and Villa are going to have to do the same as well. And I do wonder if it looked a bit, we played a little bit differently yesterday with Onana and Tielemans. They were sat quite deep together as a dual partnership, and Rodgers coming behind Bailey and Watkins. And I thought Rodgers being in that position was quite ingenious, because it meant that the inverted fullback that Arsenal like to play with Zinchenko and
Yeah.
yesterday Timber coming inside, there was no real space for them to do anything. I don't think they
Mm-hmm.
did anything at all. And
Mm-hmm.
that position gave us problems a year and a half ago when they beat us 4-2. So, no, I'm really interested. I'm interested to see more of it and see how we're evolving. Because clearly Unai Emery, the genius that he is, has some grand plans ahead.
Totally. Just to talk briefly about Nedeljkovic, from my perspective, I mean, you know, Unai will have absolutely seen something in him, because why
Yes.
would he take an 18-year-old from the Serbian league?
Yeah.
All the right backs that exist in the world, he has selected this guy, and he was one of the first signings that we made in January. So one of the
It was.
first signings that sort of Emery really has made, full stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a reason why he has picked him, and there's a reason why he let him finish off his season with Red Star before coming over to Villa and playing a lot of preseason games. Again, I'm not entirely sure he would have been he would have been as involved across preseason if Unai Emery didn't think that he was going to be involved in the first team. For example, when Jaden Philogene was involved last preseason, um, I think we all thought that he would be giving a run out. He would have been given a run out in our first team, and then he went to Hull. And it was interesting that the interview that Monchi gave a couple of weeks ago, where he said in discussions with Emery, Emery was like, "Oh God, have we made a mistake by letting Jaden go?" And that's the reason why they stuck in that clause, which allowed him obviously then to come back to Villa this season to be involved. So again, I don't think Emery takes preseason lightly. No managers do, but you go back to Carlos getting his red card and then not featuring again. I think that does say something about his opinion on preseason, that it is super important. So if you make a mistake like that, get a stupid red card like Carlos did,
Mm.
that as you say, he probably is, he probably has been punished, and he probably is still being punished for that.
Yeah.
And conversely, Nedeljkovic was heavily involved in preseason, which makes me, as I said, makes me think that he does want him to be very much in and around the first team picture. I mean, yes, he had to come on against Arsenal. We didn't actually have to, because Carlos could have come on, but
Yeah.
he was chosen to come on by Emery, which shows a huge amount of faith. And as you said, and we just said, Rodgers, a player many people wouldn't have heard of, brought in to the Premier League from the Championship, has been heavily involved and has proven to be a fantastic player for us. I see no reason to think that Nedeljkovic couldn't possibly have the same impact. Obviously, very different position as a right back, but I think he can and will prove himself over the course of a whole season. Yeah, slightly nervous start against West Ham, couple of nervous glimpses against Arsenal, but overall I thought a really strong performance against one of the
Mm.
best teams in the league.
Against
And if
Martinelli as well. Good player,
and with
top player.
Cash, yeah, absolutely. And with Cash being injured, you'd think that that's his place now
You-
to lose.
I,
So
I have a hunch, if he just plays 3 or 4 games straight,
yeah,
might make it hard for Cash to get back in.
yeah,
And I'm going to say a really big call now, right? A really big call. Sometimes with players, I get a sense, right? And I think I got this off Rodgers very early on, and I get the sense off Nedeljkovic that if he plays regularly for a full year with Aston Villa, I think there will come a point next season where, because one of his key attributes is how devastating his bombing forward. And there was one moment he did it yesterday, but it's sort of like Bailey kind of carried on into the space, so he sort of
yeah,
slowed
yeah.
down and go. And I thought I can't help but think that like there'll come a moment within the next year once he's really up to speed, he's much more confident, he's plays regularly. If this happens, where he looks like one of the most devastating fullbacks in the league, and he just can bomb on constantly into that
Bale,
final third.
Bale, Bale.
I've said it. I said it. He looks
Yeah,
like a
well,
young.
yeah,
He sort of reminds me. I'm not saying he'll ever become as great a player as Gabbo, one of the greatest players of all time. I'm not saying that's what he's going to be, but there's little hints that he has a
yeah.
similar kind of
In terms of
profile.
his style of play and profile, yeah, there are definite
Yeah.
similarities, I think. But
Yeah. Look, why
yeah,
can't why can't we get excited about our own
of
players?
course,
Oh,
of
we
course.
gotta be. Got
It's an
yeah,
exciting time,
yeah,
Frankie. This is an exciting. It's an
yeah.
exciting week. I mean, we've got the bloody Champions League
I
draw
know.
next week, and obviously that we've got. I'm sure, as I said, we'll be active in the transfer window up until Friday as well. So I think this is going to be a really really big week for Aston Villa. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Is this the end of the road for the friendship of George Zielinski and me as things get hot and heavy like we're entering Mordor in this, the spicy question? And I ask you, George, if Jack Grealish was available this week, would you take him?
Ah, Frankie, I think this is a very divisive
I
question.
think it's
This
divisive.
this is very spicy, and I'll be very intrigued to know your opinion on this.
Mm,
So my view on it is I wouldn't take him back.
okay.
I wouldn't take it back, and there are a couple of reasons. Um, I have so much faith in Unai Emery as a coach and as a manager. Literally, any player he wants, I want. Any player he doesn't want, I don't want. And I just get the vibe that if there was an opportunity for Jack to come back to Villa, and Emery wanted him, um, I think there could be a deal to be done there potentially, or at least we might hear something about it. I mean, he is a sort of player, as we were talking about in previous shows, is that sort of that number 10, that support striker that sort of can play that sort of João Felix role, um, who can unlock tight defenses. I mean, God knows we saw it enough times when he was with us a few years ago that he has that ability to get past players to find that intricate pass to work around very tight defenses. I mean, he did it numerous times in a
Mm,
Villa shirt. Um, but he's not an Emery player. I don't think he's an Emery personality either. We all loved him as a character, and yeah, he likes to have a drink in pre-season, I'm sure, or when the season ends and whatever. I don't think that's kind of like the sort of player that Emery would necessarily like to work with. Also, just from an age perspective, we've seen a huge shift in our policy in signing players at the moment. We're obviously going for a much younger
mm,
profile. Jack Grealish isn't getting any younger. Um, I wonder as well how he's been affected by his time at Man City. We've seen how he's been controlled and um, sort of almost rebranded by Pep into sort of Pep system,
mm,
which I think has been to his personal detriment. I know he's had glimpses of form at Man City, but overall, I think for the outlay the outlay, the money that they've paid for him, I don't think he's sort of repaid that amount. It would have been difficult for anybody, but I don't think he's reached the heights that I think he would have expected to reach, or Pep maybe would have wanted him to reach. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I just have this thing about going back. I think
yeah, I know.
he was brilliant for us. And obviously when he left, it was gutting. And yeah, but that's gone now. It's been. I think I think I don't want the kind of like the circus that would be involved with him coming back. I think there'd be too much disruption to the squad as it is. And in hindsight, I'm very appreciative for the money that Grealish brought in because it fundamentally allowed us to be in the position where we are now with the coaching, with the coaching staff we have now and the players we have now. That's been facilitated in many ways by the selling of Jack Grealish. So I think to bring him back would be a massive disruption to all that. And yeah, I mean, he could improve the squad, but the money you'd have to pay for him to get him back, the wages he'd be on, PSR and all the rest of it. For me, I just don't think it's value for money. We talk about Morgan Rogers. I mean, how much was he? 6 million, 8 million from
Yeah,
Middlesbrough?
8 million, yeah.
8 million quid. I mean, and who would you pick? I mean, who would you have now? It's mad. I mean, I would go for Rogers
That's
at
pretty
the
wild,
moment.
isn't it? That's true, yeah.
So I just don't think it'd be a value for money.
I think I
And,
finally found a spicy question
oh
that
my
we might disagree
goodness.
on. This might be
Okay.
it.
This
This
might be
this
it.
this is it. I am Samwell the Brave dragging little Frodo Zielinski to Mount Doom, and I've just dropped you off. I've gone that. I'm taking the room myself. I'll sort this
It's
out.
it's
I've
taken
left you there.
3 years. And we finally found 3 years of spicy questions. All right, Frankie, why would you have him back then?
I've
Make you
left you with Shelob the spider at the top of the mountain. I was like, I can't handle it. I agree. I wouldn't buy him. I would not buy him.
okay.
I disagree that he's not an Emery player. I think he is an Emery player.
Okay.
I think he is. I think his personality actually would really suit. I think Emery would like him. Because I think Grealish, we all know he portrays himself as a bit of a party boy, doesn't he?
Yeah, Jack the lad
Yeah,
type. Yeah.
Jack the lad. At the end of season, it goes on the, his voice goes hoarse, and it's like, he's like a lad from Solihull who's just been in Rosie's nightclub 10 nights in a row, off to Snobs, at 4 a.m. in the morning, the Kia Castle, something like that.
Yeah.
God, the Kia Castle, you been there?
I went there religiously
Yeah.
for about 3 years.
Jeez, God, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a few hazy memories of 6 a.m. in the morning there. But yeah.
I used to work there. Yeah,
Did
I used to
you?
work there.
Oh,
Yeah.
brilliant. Wow, okay. You probably served me. I was like, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Let me in. You're like, no, I don't know who you are. You're some loser from Solihull, mate. Get out. Let me in.
Is it still going, the Kiel Castle?
I don't
I
know.
mean,
Email, please
yeah,
email and let us know.
yeah, no,
Your
definitely,
Castle's
yeah,
going.
yeah, classic.
Um, but yeah, I think so I think he is an Emery personality. And you think back to, at Sevilla, I think Emery worked with Ever Banega. And Banega was an Argentinian player who was fantastic talent, but
Yeah,
quite, interesting character. And Emery worked with him.
yeah,
Brilliant. So I actually think I think Grealish would like working with Emery because I think Emery's sort of, I think it's just his sort of the way he is with people. He's very close in, he talks to you, he guides you and all this sort of stuff. And
mm,
he's clearly quite eccentric. The vibe I get from the players when they talk about him is that he's a bit eccentric and different, but like, which is just what he is. He's a genius, isn't he? But so I think he'd work well in that sense. I think if he came on loan for a year, I think I think it would work actually because I think I think he'd add an ingredient up front that we just don't have in the sense like I think he has a kind of experience and a game awareness. And Sam Ty, friend of the show, top football journalist, describes it as a lock picker, which is what Villa are lacking in that sort of
yeah,
number 10 role. And I think Grealish could function as that. And I think it's a
mhm,
shame that in Manchester City, he's been made into a cog in the machine. He's the pass before the pass that
yeah, yeah,
goes to the goal, So, and I just don't think the magical player we saw at Aston Villa has been present at Manchester City because that's not what Pep Guardiola's got him to do. And I think whilst it's filled his trophy cabinet, whilst he's had a fantastic experience there, no doubt, had an amazing, he'll look back in his life and think, I made all the right decisions. I mean, he did, if that's what he wanted, with the trophies and all that. But I think as football fans more widely, I think we missed out. I think if he'd gone somewhere like a Barcelona or Real Madrid back when they were Barcelona was properly run, I think as Villa fans, we'd have all got the shirts, we've all gone to watch him and
mm,
loved to do it. And I bet he'd have shown that flair and all that there. And I just think the City, we just never saw that. And, last season when Kevin De Bruyne got injured in the FA Cup final, I thought Jack Grealish could go and do the De Bruyne role. That's Grealish can do that. He did it. He was amazing at it at Aston Villa. And it's like everyone's bloody forgotten it. And it's like instead he doesn't come on, or he's stuck out on the left all the time. Just basically hold the ball, pass, hold the ball, hold the pass. It's so like just like nothing compared to the inspirational genius that we saw at Villa. And I do think if he came back to Villa, I think you mentioned it. Like you're right. What player would we be getting? Has it been coached out of him? I actually assume it's all still there. And if he was liberated to go and do what he did, and Emery said, you know what, go into this number 10 role and just free roam a little bit and just do your thing again. It might take him a little while to refine it, but I bet he could. And I think if he came in for a year's loan, I think having his experience, his Villa connection, and working with Emery, I think it would work. But I think if we were to buy him,
yeah,
I don't think I would not recommend buying him though, just because injuries. He is getting injured a lot.
Yeah.
He hasn't been playing a lot in the last year, which worries me a bit at his age, what it means long term. But also his the wages. Villa cannot take on these contracts anymore for players in the late 20s, early 30s on big contracts. I saw, as during the Perzo Gerrard era, I've said it ad nauseum, we made terrible, terrible decisions with some of the contracts we handed out in that year. We're paying the price now. If you look at what we've done in the last year, that's clearly changed, aiming for players who are a lot younger, bar 1 and 2. But if you look at Liverpool earlier, I saw a post after the Liverpool Brentford game. Sky brought up a whole list of players signed during Jurgen Klopp's sort of tenure. And the age was always 23, 24, 22, 25. There'd be the odd 26-year-old in there. But generally, it was like 26 was the limit.
Yeah.
The limit. And so, yes, I think signing a Grealish, it does make me wonder what his future is. I don't know what his future is beyond City now. I really don't, because he's not at an age where I don't think anyone with smart money would buy him. But I think as a loan, for a year, I'd be willing to take that gamble. So I've put left you in dumbstruck silence.
No.
I just thinking of the Keogh Castle, aren't you? Like,
I'm thinking. I want
great days they were.
I want a nice crispy cold pint at the Keogh Castle. That's what I'm thinking of with Jack Grealish. He's probably there now, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I was sort of daydreaming when you were talking about that, Frankie. I'll be honest. I was daydreaming. I was thinking Jack Grealish in our Adidas, our fresh Adidas drip, with the Champions League logo ironed onto his sleeve.
One last run, Jack's last run.
In our Champions League season.
Yeah. Who?
And I'm thinking, I don't know. Maybe I'm coming around to it.
The Last Dance.
Maybe I'm coming around to it.
The Last
Waltz.
I'll tell you what.
The last Gus Waltz.
Yeah, I reckon Monchi's listening to this podcast. They're all listening. Unai Emery, Monchi, Damian Vidigani, they're sat there. They're like, what advice can we get from these complete non-entities? What can we get? What do they know? What do they know? What's the secret? And I think they're going like, do you know what? Monch, get on that fucking phone right now.
The Monch.
You call up Jack Grealish. And he wakes up at 7 a.m. after a night out the Keogh Castle and he sees Monchi's picture up on his phone. And he's like, look.
Just this sort of just Monchi in capital letters, like a text message on his Apple phone.
Oh, what?
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of with it, you know. I don't know, a season-long loan, Champions League,
I'll take
Villa
it.
Park under the lights, Real Madrid.
The
fans going nuts. I don't know.
He'd do something. He'd get a volley or something. He'd do something. He'd do something. He'd be that player in the final third. That I just think that's the one ingredient Villa are slightly like. It's just someone like that. Someone.
Well, I tell you what. I mean, again, just from a pure redemption arc perspective, he left under this big cloud, and people were like, "Get it?" Like he's a scumbag. The boos when he came back to Villa Park in a Man City shirt. That would all be forgotten, wouldn't it, if he came back and then had a stonking season on loan? That would all be water under the bridge.
Everyone who booed, I never did. I've always applauded. Everyone who booed would immediately be, do you know what? He's the greatest player. There might be people listening to this
One
from
of our
Booney who are
own.
like, no, I never would. I never would. So, all right, fair enough. But I tell you what,
Well, I tell you what, Frankie. This has potentially been the spiciest question that has
spicy.
ever been uttered from your lips. So,
I'm, I'm,
again, any of our listeners, our viewers, I would really, get in touch. Let us know. Would you have Jack Grealish back at the club? And if you would, in what context would you sign him on a permanent deal? Would you have him back on loan, or would you just say, nah, no
mm,
thanks, I'll
I,
pass?
well, I,
But
yeah, I
yeah,
looked at, I bet I'll look at the subscriber count tomorrow and we've lost all our subscribers. Can't be having this. This is too spicy for me. Jack Grealish, but no chance, no chance. But
no, no chance, no
year
chance.
on loan, I take it, but signing, no.